Hey guys, today I'll be sharing with you guys how to make this striped bubu gown you are seeing right here on the screen. My name is Linda. So this consists of a striped fabric and a plain fabric. You can use any fabric of your choice, but for me, I'll be making use of Ankara, which you see me ironing. So I'm making use of this alternative for the striped fabric. If this is the kind of video you feel like watching, please stay tuned, subscribe, and let's begin. So guys, here on my work table, I have my fabric. I'm going to be making use of 2.5 yards for this black thick crepe. And then for this Ankara here, I'm going to be making use of 2.5 yards as well. So I'll go ahead and fold my fabric the way it should be. So the first thing I did was just to bring out my Ankara fabric. I'm going to be folding it into 4, and do that. It will allow me to cut the front and back piece at once. So after folding the first 2 on the wrong side, I went ahead to fold this way again, and this will help me to determine the length of the upper layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is to measure the length of the upper first layer. Okay, so the upper first layer is the Ankara, while the lower part is the plain fabric. Okay, now I'm just going to take the length of where I want it to stop. I have the length total of 36 inches, and then I'm just going to start measuring the bust point. As you can see, I have 10.5 there. Still placing my tape rule from my shoulder, I'll measure from shoulder to the hip line, which is 27 inches for my client. Now I'll go ahead and connect it into a straight line with my ruler. So guys, after marking the lines, the next thing I'm going to do now is to measure the length of my sleeve and also measure the neckline for the dress. Okay, because I am cutting the neckline and the sleeves together, I'll go ahead and just calculate the length of what I need for that. So I'm going to mark 20 inches. Okay, you can make this lesser if you don't want your sleeve or your dress to be much more bolder. So because of the choice my clients make, I'm going to mark mine at 20 inches, and then I'll come down by 1.5 inch there for the shoulder slope. After doing that, I'm just going to mark the neckline for it. So I'll measure 3 inches here for the width, and then for the depth, I'm going to be marking that of the front and back neckline at once. So before doing that, I'll go ahead and just draw a line, a slanted line from that point I made for the shoulder to the tip of the neckline. So guys, just in case you want to adjust the sides of your dress, if you are the type that has a smaller tummy or you just want to shape it up on the waistline, please endeavor to come inside a little bit like this. Just mark a line that is curved just to give it some shape on the waist. If not, just leave it as it is. Okay, so now we're going to the neckline for the dress. The first thing I'm going to do is to mark the front neckline, although you can choose to just mark any one. I'm going to be marking both the front and back on this. Okay, so for the front, I measured 8 inches depth for the front neckline, and then I just marked it the way you see me doing. I'm going to measure the distance of the line there just to create the little square V-neckline illusion. So I'll go ahead now and just connect it the way you see me doing. So what I marked there is not up to 1 inch, it's just about 0.75 inches. Okay, now after marking the front neckline, I'll go ahead now and mark that of the back on the same fabric. So guys, I'm going to be trimming out the excess fabric I have on the sides. Remember, I have about 20 inches on the sleeve. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just mark 20 inches on all the lengths like this on the side, so that I can be able to just trim out the excesses. I'll connect with my ruler and then add about 1/2 inch joining allowance for it, and then cut it off. I'll also go ahead and just mark the length for the dress. Remember, I said I'm having about 36 inches here. I added about 1/2 inch joining allowance to the lower part, after which I'm just going to cut everything out. Now place your tape rule from the tip of the neckline and mark the depth for which you want to use for your back neckline. In this case, I marked 2 inches. Okay, I don't want it to be too high, so I'm making use of 2 inches. I hope you can see the difference there. So next thing I'm going to do now is just to add about 1/2 inch at the shoulder like this, just a little bit of an inch here because I don't have enough fabric. So I'll go ahead and cut it off, starting with the back neckline, and then I'll trim out the shoulders, leaving the sewing allowance as well, then trim out all other excesses I have on the dress. So guys, heading back to the neckline, I'm going to be separating one of the fabric away from each other so that I can be able to use one as a front and then use one for the back. So after removing the one underneath, I'm going to cut off that of the front neckline. Remember that we are going to be leaving a little bit of an inch for the joining allowance. Okay, so just cut out from there and just trim out a little bit close to the line. Just leave about 0.25 inches there for the joining allowance. When I was cutting this out, I totally forgot about the joining allowance. I went ahead to trim out everything, but it's still okay, it's fine. I'll be making do with what I have like that. So don't make the same mistakes I made while cutting this out. So this is what it looks like when I open it up for you guys to see. Okay, you can see how the modified V neckline is. Okay, it's not really pointed at the chest line. So I'm going to place it on fold once again, just the way it is initially. Then I'm going to use this front to cut out the front facing. So guys, for the front facing, this is what I have. I'm going to fold my fabric a little bit like this, and then I'm going to leave it underneath the Ankara fabric. Okay, just place them together like this, just as you see me doing. And the next thing you want to do is just to measure the length for the facing. So what I'm going to measure now is about 17.5 inches. If you can make it a little bit longer than that, it's still okay. So I'll go ahead and mark mine at 19 inches. I'll also leave half of an inch for the stitching allowance. So what I'll do now is just to place them this way, making sure that the folds are aligning together, okay? The fold on the Ankara and the fold on the facing are meeting each other before I start marking. Then go ahead and pin it together and also make sure that it doesn't move about. So I'll go ahead and place my tape rule this way and measure about 3.5 inches for the wideness of the facing. And after marking a point there, I'll go ahead and trim out the neckline for the facing. Now after cutting out the neckline, I went ahead to trim out the upper part of the facing, and then I'm just going to unpin and remove all the pins I used to stitch it in place. Then make a straight line the way you see me pointing and mark 3.5 inches all the way down. Now this is what I had after I was done marking. At the lower part like this, which is like the ending part, I measured 2.5 inches and then I slanted it upwards into the 3.5 inches mark I did, just the way you see me illustrating. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just to cut it out as well. So when cutting out, remember that I already had half an inch around it, so that I will have a folding allowance that will enable it to be stitched on top of the dress. Okay, so guys, after removing the pins, I'm going to open it up for you guys to see how it looks like when it's not on fold. So I'll go ahead and iron my stay on the wrong side of it. I'm going to like double it and make it thicker, after which I'm going to fold half an inch all around it as the stitching allowance. When placing it on top of the fabric, this is how it's going to look like before stitching. Then I'm going to make half of an inch fold like this and stitch all around it to secure it in place. This is the stay. I've attached it to the wrong side of it, and this is the right side underneath. You can see how thick it is. So I'm going to place it on my fabric. My fabric is facing wrong side up, and then my right side of the facing is facing the wrong side of the fabric. And then I'm just going to align them together and stitch it by half of an inch all the way around the neckline. And after stitching, I'm going to notch it and turn it to the right side of the fabric, just the way you see me demonstrating. And then I'm going to like fold it in on the sides by half of an inch and top stitch on it all around as well. I'll also go ahead and repeat the same thing I did on the front on the back of the dress. So as you can see, I already cut out a facing for the back of the dress. It's equally the same size as the front, just that it's a bit shorter, okay, it's not long. I also went ahead to add my black crepe to the remaining part of the dress. Okay, this is the black crepe I'll be using for it, as you can see. So I'll go ahead now and open this up and then just like measure what I need to complete the rest of the dress. Okay, I have 36 here, and what I'm dealing with for the length of the dress, total length of the dress is going to be 58 inches. So I'm going to be adding like hemming allowance of 3 inches so that I can be able to fold it and hem it. So whatever is left here, I'm going to minus 36 from 58 inches, and what I have left is going to be used to complete the remaining length of the dress. So I'm going to fold the dress like this to get the width for the lower part. Okay, so for the width, I'm going to make use of the same measurement I had all along the dress. Now I have 20 inches. I'm going to still cut 20 inches for it. So this is what I had for the lower part. The length is 27 inches and a half, okay, because there is sewing allowance inclusive, and for the width is 20 inches. So I cut it out on fold. When I open it up like this, it's going to be 40 inches in width. So I'm just going to like attach it to this one on the sewing machine. Okay, I'll go ahead and stitch it by half of an inch to make it into one piece. And I'll also go ahead and finish off the neckline for the front and the back. After stitching the neckline, I went ahead to turn it in place, okay? And then I folded in the allowances that I'm going to use to top stitch on the dress, okay? You can see. So just go ahead and press it very nicely with your pressing iron just to keep it in place. You can add your hemming gum underneath to keep it secured before stitching it together. So total of what I had left here is 2 inches for the width of the facing, and that is perfect enough for what we are trying to achieve. So after pressing, the next thing I did was to fold the lower part this way by 1/2 inch, and then I also went ahead to press it as well. After I am done with that, I'll go ahead and top stitch on it like this, very close to the edge, and also do the same thing for the back piece as well. So guys, this is what I had after I was done stitching and top stitching, okay? This is how the neckline came out looking like. I'm going to open it up for you guys to see. This is the lower part, and this is how beautiful everything came out looking like. So this is the back piece. I've also gone ahead to stitch it on the neckline, okay? This is how beautiful it's looking like. Now I'm going to unpin it and set it aside. And then the next thing is to attach a long rectangular fabric from the shoulders all the way down to the length of the dress, okay? I'm also going to hem it after attaching. So this is the long rectangular fabric I'm going to attach. It's as long as the length of the dress. So I'm cutting out 4 pieces for each sleeve. I've also gone ahead to hem it on the sides, okay? And what I have for the width is about 5 inches, including the joining allowance. So I have 2 pieces here, which is for one side of the dress, and another 2 pieces for the other side of the dress. So guys, now I'll go ahead and attach that long strip of fabric on the sides of the sleeve just to extend the length of the sleeve, okay, so that we'll achieve what we're looking for. I'll place it this way with the right sides facing each other, and then I will stitch from all the way from the lower part to the upper part, just the way you see me pointing. And then I'm also going to repeat the same thing on the other side of it. So I'll be stitching by 1/2 inch, and also do the same thing on the back piece. So guys, I've gone ahead to stitch the shoulders together, and this is what it looks like after I was done. You can see, and this is how the sides look like as well. The next thing left for us to do now is just to go ahead and close the sides together and stitch it as one piece, okay? So what you need to do is just to place them together like this. If you want to close the sides, the first thing you need to do is just to measure the opening for the arm. So from the shoulders, you're going to place your tape rule and then measure 10 inches. Depending on the opening you want to use for your sleeve, you might want to make it 10 inches or even 12 inches, depending on your preference. After marking what you want to mark, what you need for that, you are going to be stitching the rest of the dress all the way down from that part where you marked to the length of the dress. And also go ahead to hem the lower part like this, okay? Just fold it into 2 to hem it. Another way you can close the sides is by hiding the stitches inside, okay? So you don't want the stitches to be noticeable. All you need to do is to turn it inside out on the wrong side, and then follow the first stitches you have made on the sides. Bring in the black piece, leaving out only the 1/2 inch sewing allowance. That's where we're going to be starting our stitches. So this is the black piece underneath, okay? I didn't include this. So from here, I'm going to measure 10 inches for the sleeve opening, and then from this point I'm going to stitch it, okay, following the initial line that was there, and stitch all the way down to the length of the dress. And by so doing, our dress is going to be over and done with. This is a sneak peek of the dress. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this looking so fine? You can also go ahead and attach an invisible belt on the waistline just to give it some shape when you're putting it on. With that being said, we've come to the end of the tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe and also tap on the notification bell. I'll see you guys next time.